What's up, guys? Derek, moreplates.com. Today we're going to be doing the update for the LGD-4033 Injectable SARMs log. So it's been pretty much exactly a month at the time of recording this video. A lot of you guys wanted an update sooner. Frankly, I was backlogged on topics. It was the holidays. There was like a snowstorm. There's like all these things that basically backlogged me. And in addition to that, I just didn't feel it was a sufficient enough time frame to really give any insight that I thought was worth it. I wouldn't say it takes a while for you to lose muscle, but it's, if you have something anabolic, it's a bit more indicative of, I didn't want to basically like start it for a week and then come back and say, oh yeah, it's definitely like keeping my muscle, because frankly, I think that's too short of a time frame to really assess what's going on and to ensure anything and like remnants and metabolites of anything I've worked my way out of the system. In addition to that, the first week, like literally right after I published it, I ended up getting sick. So I don't know what it was. It was like over Christmas, everyone just got sick. It seems like, obviously, winter time, people are getting sick, but it seemed like everyone just like really got like hit hard over the holidays specifically. And I did. And the first thing that came to my mind was, is this a good time to be doing a injectable SARMs and estrogen cycle only throughout the holidays when I feel like absolute ass? So what I did for the first like 5 days was I actually used 10 milligrams of test prop per day just to get me through Christmas, to make sure that at first I wasn't sure if me feeling like complete shit was me being sick or if it was my lack of any androgens in the body, because I had, at this point, when I started the thing, I had no androgens at all in my body. I had no testosterone. I had no nandrolone. Everything had worked my way out of the system. I had no idea, to be honest. I didn't know it was hard to say if I felt like shit because I was sick or not. So I used, the test prop to make sure that if it was the SARM and no test, that I could at least get through Christmas without feeling like a bag of shit. So it ended up not being the lack of testosterone, because after I stopped being sick, I stopped feeling like shit and I dropped the testosterone and I felt fine. And it's been like, 3.5 weeks or almost 3.5 weeks now of just LGD with no test. So I have zero testosterone, I have zero DHT in my system, I have zero nandrolone, I have zero any androgens at all, which is the first time I have had that in a long, long time. Like, I've always been on some sort of HRT regimen, at a therapeutic dose for years. And this is my first time like being completely off of test. And I was surprised. And interestingly enough, this is the thing that's weird. So I have like a few notes I wanted to touch on that I felt were important. So blood pressure, first of all, compared to TRT on its own and compared to nandrolone. So basically, I wanted to give some sort of comparison here, not just my insight as to how I feel and what's going on. I want to like actually compare it for you with some sort of biomarkers too. So I will get blood work done, but just giving you guys an update before I get the blood work. Blood pressure compared to testosterone is similar. My blood pressure is better than when I was on nandrolone only. So the thing with nandrolone only is I do think it has some sort of effect on the regulation of electrolytes in the body. Most people think it spikes aldosterone and causes this, massive spike in blood pressure. My blood work showed no increase in aldosterone whatsoever from the nandrolone when I was doing it. So I'm not sure exactly what the mechanism was, but my systolic was, blatantly elevated more than it normally is when I was on nandrolone only. And when I came to LGD, it went back to normal. So obviously something's going on there. I'll update this if this changes. However, up to now, it seems like, blood pressure fairly good on LGD. Sex drive, this is the weird thing. So SARMs, obviously tissue selective compounds, they're designed to have a lack of androgenicity. I would expect a lack of libido with zero androgens in your system and just estrogen. Like, the androgenic component of LGD is supposed to be basically non-existent. It's supposed to be a 500-to-1 muscle to prostate tissue selectivity relative to testosterone, and that's what's shown in the clinical data. But in practical application, my libido is higher than it was on nandrolone only, and that was on 100 milligrams of NPP per week, which is not nothing. Perhaps it is, I would say, for most people, they're going to say, oh, that's nothing. Most guys are on like 200 plus of tests for their HRT. For me, though, 100 milligrams of NPP is a fairly significant dose and is more than enough to cause, androgenic side effects and viralization. You've seen this in the clinical data if you've delved into nandrolone, women who were using 50 to 100 milligrams of nandrolone experienced viralization. At least some of them did. So despite the fact that it 5-alpha reduces into the far less androgenic DHN and all these things, even that, which is like the least androgenic steroid you can use, essentially, my libido was lower on the nandrolone than it is on the LGD currently. It's really weird. It's almost like, so TRT, this is my libido on TRT, this is my libido on NPP only, and this is my libido on LGD. It's like 2/3 of what it is on TRT compared to NPP. It's really, really odd. In addition to that, my body hair growth does not seem to be slowing down whatsoever, which is interesting because I'm on a fairly high dose of exogenous estrogen as well as the LGD and no androgens in my body. So really odd on that. So perhaps, it's fair to assume that it's not as selective as we once thought. However, the clinical data does show that, many women have tolerated these compounds at dosages, multiple fold higher than would be what we probably think are going to be therapeutic dosages in a clinical setting with no body hair growth, no viralization, no nothing. So it's kind of like a weird thing that's going on for me that I'm sort of wondering what's going on. Like, is it more androgenic than we have been led to believe? I don't know, but it's like I have red flags everywhere showing that. Hair loss hasn't gotten any worse though. So that is of note. Blood work, obviously I got to do that still. Muscle retention, I don't think I've lost anything. Like as far as strength goes in the gym, one thing I do think is I feel deflated a bit. And this is, probably largely regulated by the fact that LGD is just like literally all it does is it has like a biological target of the androgen receptor, muscle tissue and bone is what it's like supposed to go after and induce anabolic activity in, but there's no really byproduct effect on creatine, glycogen to the effect of like something like a nandrolone, for example. So when I switched from the nandrolone to the LGD, I definitely felt like got flatter, I think, or at least I felt flatter. Perhaps it's just placebo, but my weight has not decreased. My strength has not decreased at all. And basically how I assess if something is working or not would be I have a baseline of, therapeutic TRT, and this is what I've established can maintain my physique. And I know exactly what my strength is at the gym, obviously. I can see where I'm hitting failure, how many reps I am, what the weight is. If I get stronger from the exact same calorie intake, with the only thing that's changed is a drug, obviously you would know, okay, this drug is stronger milligram for milligram, and that's why I'm getting gains in the gym relative to what my baseline is on TRT. So my way to assess is if LGD was as strong as NPP or TRT for like comparing 100 milligrams of test to 100 milligrams of NPP to 3 milligrams per day of injectable LGD. So far, I have lost 0 strength. On the scale, I haven't lost any weight. My body composition has not been significantly hindered in terms of fat gain either. Only thing that I've noticed that potentially negative is I feel definitely flatter. But have I lost muscle? I don't think so. And based on this, that's really promising because that was my entire hope for this experiment would be that I could retain all the muscle I had from TRT with just a SARM. So then I could theoretically, if I ever wanted to blast, I could, stack these things with a relative, lack of androgenic effects ideally and potentially less impact on health markers because as you know, oral SARMs can impact liver. They can impact certain markers in the body that are potentially bypassed entirely with injectable SARMs. That remains to be seen, but those things aren't a huge concern for me because the impact of oral SARMs anyways on the body are like fairly minimal, but the increased bioavailability, the increased potential for anabolic activity, the decreased risk of side effects, lack of androgenicity. There's just a ton of attractive things about these injectable SARMs that really draws me in and makes me look at it as a potential, not only a potential like hair loss prevention alternative for like short-term monotherapy for regrowing hair sort of thing. Like I feel like it could be potentially not only used in a muscle accrual phase as a more hair safe like bulker potentially, but in addition to that, even a hair recovery phase whereby you don't use any androgens, and you basically put yourself in a state where you're dependent on exogenous estradiol and a SARM, where you can then maintain your physique while regrowing hair that you had lost via miniaturization of androgens in the past. These are all things I wanted to evaluate with this experiment to some extent, and sort of, see if there's sort of practical applications for it in my realms of interest, rather than just, is this as good as 500 tests for building muscle? So for me, so far so good, I would say. However, the libido thing throws me off, because to me that's like a red flag of androgenic activity. If my libido's spiking, why would that be? Like, how could I possibly have any drive via this LGD? Like, it's supposed to be selective in muscle tissue and bone. Why is my dick wanting to have sex more? Makes no sense. At least, and it's not reflected, at least in the clinical data, what we can see these things do. It makes no sense why my sex drive would be higher with zero testosterone in my system, above and beyond Magnalone. So I don't know, that remains to be seen. And obviously this is a bit of just a brief kind of like general update. It's not like there's anything super notable that's crazy. And the whole point of it, a lot of people, are looking at this in the wrong context. I don't even know if they watched my video thoroughly in the first one, but I'm not trying to gain anything. If I gained anything, that would be insane. It would make me think that testosterone and Magnalone fucking suck compared to SARMs. I was hoping at most I would retain what I have, because then I could see a therapeutic or a near therapeutic level of SARMs can actually replicate the anabolic activity purely of real fucking steroids. Because a lot of people, the way they evaluate these compounds is they'll use an oral SARM at a fairly low dosage with no estrogen in their system, and inhibiting pathways of growth and suppressing endogenous androgen levels, thereby suppressing endogenous aromatization, and then assessing the anabolic activity of the SARM based on basically an inhibited pathway of growth, in my opinion. So with sufficient estrogen levels, with full bioavailability with the injectable method of administration, with all these things, and completely wiping out my endogenous androgens and having no TRT in my system whatsoever, I can see exactly, is it maintaining my muscle? Yes or no? Is my strength maintaining? Yes or no? And at that point, I can make an assessment. It is at least as good as TRT levels of test and or HRT levels of Nandrolone. And if it is, then that's fucking great, because that means I potentially have something I might want to even blast with in the future. But that still remains to be seen, as I need to really get a handle on if this is too short-term in an assessment to say for certain that it is doing what I think it's doing. And the libido thing is throwing me off, and I want to see my blood work on it too, because these things are, some of it's a bit weird in my opinion. Like, I don't know why my libido would be higher on it, but so far so good as far as the anabolic side. Seem to be holding up. I don't feel like shit. I don't have, depression or anything despite the lack of testosterone. Most likely because I actually have, everything that is mediated through aromatization, I have, at least checked off to some extent via the exogenous estradiol. So hopefully that is sufficient to really get a gauge of what's going on. But if any of you guys have experiences, like, put it in the comments down below too. Like, there was a very disappointing amount of feedback in my last video. I didn't ask for it specifically, but I'm hoping to see other guys' feedback on this stuff too. And surely I'm not the only one experimenting with this. I would think perhaps other people are not doing it to the extent I am, where I'm like not using a TRT with it at all, and I'm like letting my fucking test be zero while I use it with estrogen to see exactly how anabolic it is. But I want to see other guys' experiences too, and they're like few and far between. I thought more people had tried this stuff, and I've had a few people reach out and be like, it's good. And it's like, well, can you give some sort of elaboration on exactly what's going on? Like, because that's a very, very basic answer. And a lot of people, they do seem to think these things have a lot of promise. But I have yet to see, like elaborate reviews that are even worth, talking about, because most people are just like, it's good. I like it. It's like, fuck, dude, come on. So I want to see some blood work. I want to see some like real like comparisons to other compounds. I want to see like some actual like practical fucking information here. I don't want to be the only one finding out this shit, because I learn from other people too. So, and it helps me form my own conclusions and sort of see things to look out for in my own experiments. So if any of you guys have tried this shit, let me know about the injectable SARMs experiences. But so far, this is mine, and it's promising. It's promising. I'm not making any, concrete conclusions yet. And like I said, I want to see the bloods. I want to see further effects on androgenic activity down the line. I want to see effect on hair down the line. So I'm going to stick it out a bit longer. I initially thought this might be just a few week experiment, but it may actually end up being, a few months. So I'll keep you guys updated, but that is where we're at so far. So thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe. Check out my blog, moreplatesmoredates.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplates_moredates, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, BitChute, TikTok, Apple Podcasts, wherever I am. Sign up to the newsletter, link in description below. Anytime I post a video with a more elaborate topic that I feel is worth polishing up and making a professionally formatted article, I always do, and I send it out only to the mailing list, and that is through that link. And my videos, I kind of just ramble off the top of my head, whereas in the articles, everything is broken down, polished, table of contents, concise subsections. All the clinical data is, cited that I actually refer to, whereas in the videos, it's not at all. So a lot of incentive to sign up for that, because then you guys can actually, research further for yourself rather than just hear me ramble for 20 minutes straight without any sort of direction on where to look further into this stuff. So thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.